but I have listening ADD, so audiobooks just in one ear and out the other for me. They don't.
I'm a lot better at the audio.
It's still worth
than
it
the
to
reading.
listen to some particular parts that Marsters does.
Oh yeah.
Specifically the
One of those
changes.
things that when you have kids, you learn how to block out certain noises and you forget how to turn that off. So I have a hard time. Like even podcasts, I'll be like, okay, what were they just talking about? Because my mind will just wander. So I miss too many details on, you read epic fantasy where there's like 100 characters and there's like 200 cities, and you can't do that I can't do that on audio form.
I've done all of Sanderson on audio, and I think I retain it somewhat, but
at least somewhat.
Yeah, I've heard some people say it's like Matrix. It just like downloads to their brain. They're not even paying attention, and then they realize they heard the whole thing. I'm like, I wish I could do that because I can't.
Right.
Oh, welcome to the Dresden Files podcast.
Welcome to the Dresden Files podcast.
We really like these cold opens. So.
I really like
We're
them,
not nearly
I'll
as
be
cool
honest.
as sliding across the bullpen with a helmet and having Captain Holt in the background, but we really like the cold opens. So Brooklyn Nine-Nine, sorry. Yeah.
So and we're gonna be talking Peace Talks. And in many ways, this is Peace Talks Part 1. And
We're doing
all spoilers. Lots of spoilers.
But
Spoiler
are we keeping this one light-ish or
Light, but we will dissect everything when our resident eldest Gruff returns and he's willing to speak to us again.
Yeah.
Light spoilers then.
Well, just like surface level, right? So like if you don't want to have
what
the
we
plot
thought of
ruined,
the book, right? Like
Well-
what we like, what we didn't, stuff like that.
Yeah.
there's almost certainly going to be major plot spoilers, but I don't think
For
we're
sure.
going to get all the way into the nitty-gritty and the ramifications and everything. We just don't have time. But
Yeah.
Director, would you also like to introduce?
We have a guest of Mike Books Reviews because he just got caught up and it was really fun for me to watch him on Twitter of reacting to the books, especially like going through, as everyone does, to changes. It was fun to watch. So that's
I did my very first video and people said, I can't wait until you get the changes. And I'm like,
Right.
okay, well, I'll let you know in 12 books when I get there.
It's
It's
always
actually
the
weird
saw
thing to
your-
say to a new person, like, oh, you're on book 1. You have to tell me when you're at book 12.
Right.
And it's such a
Right.
strange thing, but it is so worth it. And when you were lining up right to get caught up when Peace Talks comes out, it's like, okay, let's do a chat. This is going to be fun.
I actually saw your video reaction of two changes.
The first chapter or the last chapter?
The last chapter.
Yeah, that's the one that Jim himself actually said it
Yeah,
was
he
like
just
very
shared it on,
rewarding to
on
watch.
Twitter,
yeah.
I think. And it's like where you were like, yeah, I don't usually react to books, and I was like, yeah, you just wait. I'm watching. I'm gonna see something here.
I have been against reaction videos because I feel like they're always staged and people overact in them and stuff like that. And I was like, when I'm reading, I'm just a very immersive reader, and maybe I'll raise an eyebrow or something. But yeah, I had to look at the camera a couple times and be like, wait, what? So, it met the hype. Usually it doesn't.
And it usually doesn't, but for that book, it is totally worth it. And 6 years has been worth waiting for Peace Talks.
I don't know.
Everything
Did it happen?
Everything happened in Peace Talks.
A lot happened in Peace Talks. So many things we wanted to see, but people are not happy.
I was going to say, like, if you're one of those that didn't like the book, you're probably going to find this episode pretty rough because we're big old fans of the book and we enjoyed it. I get it. It's not, I wouldn't say it's one of his strongest pieces of work. It obviously can't stand on its own because it's a part 1. So don't get your panties in a bunch when you didn't get answers to literally everything because we're going to get Battlegrounds in 3 months. And that's when I think you're going to be able to judge it, this book sucks or this whatever. I mean, I told the wife, and it's an anecdote from our story, this was Infinity War in a lot of ways, but we don't have to wait for 3 months to find out. Like the same kind of like, oh shit, at the end of the movie where it's like, how are we getting out of this? Like, the heroes have got to win because that's the kind of story we're in, right? Harry's going to make it. There are some other things that you can draw lines between this and Christmas Eve. Spoilers, we know some of the people make it because that's the kind of story we're in, and we already have a epilogue, right, of sorts. But that doesn't mean that you're not like, how do we get here from there? Like that there isn't drama in this book. So
I mean, if it wasn't for the Christmas story, I would have been worried for Mab.
Oh yeah, for sure. She got warped hard, man. So yeah, she got like, in case anyone is unsure of just how badass this person is that walked into the room,
Matt was broken.
allow me to tell you from 3
shattered
blocks over. Ow!
And I'll say I really like this book. I think it really managed to. It's in some ways it's Butcher at his best, but it definitely has a lot of real problems, and I can recognize that kind of analytically. There's some structural things going on. There's some just a lot of isolated moments that kind of feel like filler or padding, but I think the tone is right. I think the payoff, it's a lot of actual payoff for the series and not just set up for the next book. I think there's a lot of things tying it together that.
I mean, we started getting answers on a few things.
Right. Absolutely.
And that's pretty important. And then, but of course, in a good way, like in the good trope, we answered you, but only this much, and then we gave you about this many more questions. Like you know, like the whole Starborn thing. We finally get a taste of that. We finally understand much better the mechanics and confirmation on like one of the key power sets. But then literally everybody is like, I was specifically asked not to tell you about this. And it's like, by who? Who's got leverage on all y'all and has skin in the game enough to be like, no, if you know this is bad, you know. And there's quite a bit of still mystery to figure that out later. But yeah. So anyway,
this just makes me sad. This just makes me sad that I didn't experience this like you guys, because I haven't had time to formulate all these theories, and I need to have this, and this answered. So
well, yeah, we have. I mean, we've had 5 years of theory crafting. What I tell every single person when they catch up to wherever the current book is that congratulations, whether you like it or not, you are now a Dresden scholar. You know, especially for the gap of the last 5 years, it's like all you have right now is the theory crafting, the deep lore, you know, things to keep it going. You know, so there's been quite a bit of that. We did speculation episodes galore. We've tried to dig into the nature of Nemesis and just all of these things. So I'm sure while we're reading it, we're like, which of our theories are paying off, and you know, where's this going to lead to? And
still cannot prove Rashid and Vadarung are not the same person.
Oh my God, would you just not?
But not prove it, not yet.
We can't add the Titan to the list. So.
About the only one that I really dived into was Cowl and Komori. That was about the only one that I've touched on it like at all. So I didn't.
There are some
apparently, a lot of the things I said I wanted to know about, people slapped back that they were in the short stories, and I felt like an idiot. So I won't talk about those.
Well, fans can be rough.
Yeah. There's fact checkers. They're good fact checkers. I'll put it that way.
Right. I think I noticed there's about 3 different kinds of ways of handling stuff from the short stories. There's at least 3 things. And one of the best ones was when he didn't have any kind of setup or explanation. It was very satisfying because it's limited knowledge. Dresden doesn't know, and it's told in the first person, and so the reader reading just Peace Talks won't know. But if you have read the other short story, then you do. But I think with the others, there was just kind of like there's one where just something gets thrown in, if you know what I mean. Not because no spoilers, right? Something gets thrown in.
We can spoil.
Oh,
no, go ahead. It's already been spoiled in all my comments. All the short stories have been spoiled in my comments, so there's nothing you guys are going to spoil me on.
Oh, well, a literal head gets thrown in, and that's explained.
Right.
Oh, right.
But then there's a major plot point too, and a whole conversation and scene that also is payoff from the short stories with River Shoulders, right? So there's kind of 3 different levels of how he's handled short story integration, which is just a wonderful way of tying it together. I do worry that there's not a larger scope of what Peace Talks could be and other supernatural nations we don't know about what that could be, and there's no setup for that. But it's tying together everything that we have seen, even if it's not bringing too much new in the Peace Talks portion of the story.
Yeah,
of course,
I mean,
besides the big reveal.
To expound on that a little bit, I mean, he canonized all the short stories in a lot of ways, and he's done that before, but Peace Talks had, you know, more weight by volume in that regard. Curses is the reference you're talking about. And then also, you know, obviously Bigfoot shows up on screen, spoilers. And one of the other ones that might be subtle for a lot of fans was that he specifically talks about the Naga from Ghoul Goblin, if I recall correctly. And so, like, he canonizes some of the comics in the process. Now, unfortunately, it's one of the worst ones. However, he specifically talks about, you know, some of these things. So there's a lot of Easter eggs,
so we've
from
had
his
the
other
first
stuff.
chapter of peace talks for a handful of years, and it's gone through a couple of different versions, and I don't remember exactly which one that I read that on the when Carlos was acknowledging Thomas, he said it's been a while since Iowa, but in the version I just read, it said since the Deeps.
Gotcha.
I don't remember exactly how they line up in the fact of Iowa or the Deeps from White Knight, but it almost seemed like he was taking that back and not acknowledging Warcry, which also sucked him.
Well, but Warcry took place shortly after Deadbeat, so Warcry was before White Knight.
Okay, it could have been just a continuity fix, but because I saw that right after we had gone over Warcry, it's like, okay, so it is canon, but it isn't. Maybe, I don't know.
It is a really good catch, but I'm a wager here, and she can correct us on Reddit. I smell Priscilla here, so she's one of the. I mean, obviously, it could have been any of the betas, but she talks about all the time having to correct his version of timeline, and I think she's the official keeper of the timeline, isn't she now? So she'd be like, bro, like he's definitely seen him since Deadbeat, and since because Warcry is contemporary, right? It both preludes Deadbeat and follows it up, their first as Warden's mission, because Harry is Warden Dresden then, and gets his team and whatnot, team. But anyway, that's getting deep and nerdy, so
like normal then,
right?
What were your guys' favorite moments out of the book?
All your base are belong to us. I don't even know what that means.
Did I miss that?
Well, here's the thing, guys. I read from what I was talking about before you went live was that I got an uncorrected proof was my arc. So there have been things that people have told me about
It's in the
quotes, like a
audiobook.
Buffy quote, which I didn't have in my book. And then I say stuff like that. And I'm like, I'm wondering now, well, gosh, was this in the version that other people read? So
interesting.
It is in the audiobook. It's the passphrase when he has to get into
all our base belongs to, that's
like, I don't even know what that means. And stars and stones, I know what that means if you would have told me. So
right.
Things like that.
I
love.
As much as Ebenezer is terrible in this book for like a lot of reasons, he's still my favorite moments. To be like, look at that, boy, my plan was well executed, and if you paid attention, no vampires. He
was so sassy,
right? Like, so much smartassery, but he was also, I mean, as Dresden put it, he was out of control, and that's chilling, especially if someone of his magnitude of power. Like he was just around the bend in this book. So
see, and that was my biggest question in my review was I never thought of Ebenezer as like Mr. Cool, Mr. Relax, but I was like, he seems like a freaking teenage hothead boy in this book, and I could not figure out why. And I assumed that this was something in short stories. People have told me no, but also then I thought, okay, maybe I'm looking at it like this. Look how Harry is with the ghouls. No matter what, he's never going to be able to look at them without just like burning hatred. So I'm thinking, obviously, Ebenezer's like that with vampires. Yeah, that's all I can get. But still, he seemed like he was always pissed off in this book, like always.
There's a fair bit of that. Obviously, Harry and Ebenezer have that moment, right? That's not speculation. That Ebenezer's like, think about you and the ghouls from Camp Kaboom. And then, he's got the hot-headed Scotsman and whatever, but he's always tried to come across as the wiser, cooler-headed, whatever. But if you kind of like refocus it through a lens, like his showdown with Kincaid makes more sense, right? Like he's more or less, from Kincaid's perspective, and I want to bring this up because it's outside of the White Council and it's outside of Harry's hero worship, is that, McCoy is little better than a hired gun. And so like he moves from, the badass that is like, always have a plan, always pay attention, and then, have a plan to kill everybody in the room, always keep cool, be polite, and have a plan to kill everybody in the room. That might, that was probably closer to my perspective of him. And then, after you see this shit, it's just like, I mean, he's like one push away. But I mean, you could also take Karen's words at face value that it's family. So, Harry's inside of his defenses, inside of any of his emotional distancing or anything that he would do with, say, Ramirez. Ramirez would not get under Ebenezer's skin like Harry does. But it's just it's
that's
so
the best
tough
answer I've gotten.
watch.
Thank you. Everybody else is like, maybe he's being corrupted by the black stuff or something.
God, no.
That's the best answer I've gotten.
That there is a pretty big comment on that, especially leading up to the book from the subreddit, because we got the first 6 chapters, and I honestly skipped the first 6 chapters this time because I was like halfway through chapter 1 and I'm like, I can't sit here and read what I've already read, but because of how Carlos approaches Harry about peace talks and Ebenezer approaches Harry about peace talks belies the fact that they're not on the same page. And so someone's like, wait a minute, somebody's lying. Somebody's, out of the loop or whatever. And honestly, I mean, it still could go either way, because it's not like Carlos is the same kind of Carlos that we would expect in love either. So there's definitely some shenanigans afoot. And it could just be, well, he's Mab's monster now. Everybody sees Harry as, the Winter Knight instead of as Harry Dresden. But there were definitely some missteps from some people in this book.
I wouldn't be surprised if Lucio told Ramirez to be especially paranoid because Harry is Ebenezer's blind spot. She is old enough to remember that Ebenezer advocated for him to the White Council to keep him alive as a teenager and all of the other defenses that he's ever done. So she, even if she doesn't know of the familial relationship, she knows that Ebenezer will try to protect Harry. And if Harry's corrupted, someone has to be paranoid, and that's the Wardens.
I think there's so first of all, to touch on the McCoy and Harry being inside his defenses, I don't think, if we think back to the confrontation on the island, I don't think McCoy would have, under any other circumstances, normally been like put a head of state in their place the way he did like that, like he did with Lara back in Proven Guilty.
Turncoat.
Yeah, because even crap. Why can't I remember the other senior council chick?
Mai?
Ancient Mai. She was like, "Hi-ya!" Like, what's fucking wrong with you? Yeah.
And so I think that's definitely that's another more you see, like, if when it comes to Harry, there's no chill.
Right.
And the other thing I was going to say was, I think one of the reasons Ramirez is the way he is for sure that if we see how he treats Molly in the short story, and then what happens to him, it's like up until that point, he's like still very, so what if you're like Winter Lady and he's Winter Knight? I was like, you're still my people.
Right.
And he just
that's a huge part of the calculus. It's not something that I'm discounting, is that he very much trusted them until Molly flipped out, obviously because of the mantle, but he doesn't know that, right? And so that's definitely a big part of wounding his trust. But if you're going to tell me to my face that you trust me and stop me in the middle of the fucking night on the side of a country road, you've sent the wrong message. Like, they were ready for a fight. They weren't ready to discuss something, because if they thought Harry was still Harry, they would have had this conversation in a hotel lobby. It shows a little lack of trust, sure, but it gives him the benefit of the doubt that, he's not going to burn down Chicago. He's not going to endanger innocent people, all of these other things. By stopping him in the middle of a country road, regardless of what their words said, their actions said, we don't trust you for shit. And that
Harry doesn't
crazy.
handle that the best, though. I mean, all he could have just said was, yeah, I slept with my girlfriend, not the vampire.
Sure. But it's a Harry response, and it's an American response. It's none of your fucking business.
It is
right
none of your
answer,
business. But in that situation, I'm like, well, it's not like Harry. He could have de-escalated it, but Harry did what Harry does.
Yeah. Well,
Harry authority.
Even before the mantle, Harry does not de-escalate. Like he would de-escalate if he thought he was completely out of his weight class and Mab was staring him down. Sometimes he would de-escalate. But not even that anymore.
His head bounced around an elevator because he didn't back down from Mab.
Right.
Well, okay. I'm thinking like book 4, he kind of de-escalated. No, but he talks back to he talks back to everybody. Yeah. Right. So it's very Harry not to de-escalate just out of gumption.
Right.
And spite. That's Harry. Gumption and spite.
Hey, can I ask you guys a question?
No.
You guys seem like you liked the book mostly. Yeah.
Yes.
Here's the thing. On the Discord, I have two guys that are basically like Dresden scholars. Like you ask them about anything and they can tell you the lore of stuff that I had no idea even existed. Like they're talking about like Michael slaying a dragon and like being a doctor and all this stuff. I'm like, I had no idea about something. I mean, I heard the mention, but they could like tell you the story behind all this stuff. And so they know everything. And here's something I had when I read Wheel of Time. I heard lots of stuff about, oh, well, you're not going to like when you get to this book, this book, and this book. As a binge reader, they didn't bother me. So what I was worried about with this book is I read this, I treated it as like a part one of a 2-part season finale of a TV show. I knew it was going to be kind of like that. I didn't feel like it was super cliffhangery, like changes or something. But I was like, okay, it set up everything. And I'm pretty sure Battlegrounds could give me the answers that I want. And I'm looking at these as one book. So what I want to know is, as longtime waiters, were you guys as disappointed as I'm hearing a lot of disappointment from people who are waiting, whereas people like me who have not had to wait a long time for this book don't seem as disappointed? Do you think that's a real thing?
I'm not disappointed. Maybe it's because we had Priscilla come on and tell us some about of how it was going down with as the beta read and when they were actually deciding to split it up. But she basically told us there's just a little bit too different, and it's going to be better to have this Peace Talks and Peace Talks Part 2, essentially. And so I knew it was going to be that way, and I didn't feel disappointed. I know a lot of people who did audio only were just really surprised when the credits started rolling because they didn't realize they were at the end. But when I was reading it on my Kindle, it's like I know how close I am to the end. I know
98%. I'm like, this is going to end really soon, isn't it?
Yeah, I was definitely holding the book, and I'm like, we haven't actually had any peace talks in the book. Like I got like this much, like I got an inch of like he's still got to do his crazy action sequence because he's got his writing tempo. There's always the big action sequence and then the resolution. I'm assuming he's still going to follow his pattern, and he kind of did, but we didn't actually have any peace talks. And so I'm like,
I can see your Goodreads review right now. No actual peace talks, 1 star.
Yeah, right. And a lot of people were like that, right? But like it hits the ground running, and it just doesn't give us the pretense of what the title does, right? Like basically by what, chapter 5? Well, it's chapter 6, I guess. You know, basically the building is on fire and it isn't my fault. And at that point, it just does not let up. Honestly, they had already sowed some of the, he had already sowed some of the conflict earlier than that with Ebenezer and some shit like that too. But it's not going to give up. And honestly, like that was something that I, in the first, several chapters was like, oh my God, would you just leave him alone? It was like, we get it. Like Harry's got his challenge, then he's got his 3rd challenge, then he's got his 5th challenge, but we're on challenge 8. And I'm like, bro, literally, he can't handle this. Like, I don't care who you are. That's why the White Council thing, that's fucking tomorrow's problem. The Thomas thing, all but, was tomorrow's problem.
He just puts him on ice, basically. He's like, I can't right now.
Well, by the end, but, even like for a big part of it, like, sure, he's like trying to thread things together and shit. But yeah, like, it's just... we deal more with the outsiders for the first half of the book and just all this other shit. It just.
What I was thinking when I was reading it, when I got to 51% on the Kindle thing, I was like, well, I'm a little bit frustrated I didn't get to the diplomacy stuff because I always loved the fairy stuff, the wizard stuff, the diplomacy stuff in the Dresden Files. That's one of my favorite bits. But then I thought, well, we just did the reread, and when I reread Changes, like the big book, right? It still had about 60% of just things happening, and they're just kind of going, Earl King, blah, 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 all this other stuff. And the real meat of it, the real awesome part of it, the sequence that everyone loves, where it starts going through the ways and attacking Chichen Pizza and all this stuff. That stuff is the last third of the book, and the first 2/3 still kind of isn't there. Right. So not even just big action sequence, just the main action of the story that ties it all together and makes sense of all these separate little chapters that don't, Butcher likes the thing where there's 5 different mysteries, but they're really just facets of the one mystery, and that gets revealed. Right. And so for me, the Peace Talks kind of shape, it was a small little climax with a gigantic plot bunny, to use the term, that landed with a head throwing scene. But otherwise, it's a kind of small little novella story with kind of a bait and switch. You think it's going to be Peace Talks, but nope, it's setup for Battleground.
That was kind of the concept, right? That's what he set out to do. He was
Yeah,
like, okay,
exactly right.
I'm setting up this cold peace talks. I'm setting all this up. I'm doing all these things, and then I'm gonna do a 180, and it's completely different. That was his whole idea for the book, which is one of the reasons it took so long for him to write, I think, and because like it was really hard for him to do that.
Right. And because he had to fit everything in it, so much so that he's got a second book. But
but I wasn't this when I read the arc. I mean, I was like, when I was done, I was like, oh my god, there's so much. I know, and I knew also it was going to be a 2-parter. When I read it, that it was like, there's so much good shit here. There's so many things that you're like, we get answers to some like Starborn. We see one of the coolest showdowns in the book so far, and I loved it, and we finally, Ebenezer finally gets told about Thomas, and I
love in this book, and I'm like, that's the one that I heard the most. Is Ebenezer finally going to find out about Thomas? I was like, does that not count as an answer?
Right? Yeah, that definitely ties up part of the thread, but again, it's a continuing story, so it's going to kick off way more shit than it does. But it's funny because it's almost a footnote compared to the other reckoning that has to happen now too. You know, like the way that pissing contest wound up. You know, it's like, you're not just walking away from that. There's going to be a reckoning for what just happened, and it has more to do than even just telling about Thomas. So,
I got a Thomas question. What do you guys think the Svartalfs did to make him go after them like that? I mean, everybody say, well, they probably threatened Justine. Why?
No.
What did they have? I have no idea what would make him go that crazy that he would try to kill somebody.
I think the Fomor got to him, or somebody on that level. I don't think the Svartalfs did anything. I think the Svartalfs.
You don't think Nemesis has him?
It's possible, but I don't think it's that deep. I think it probably is old-fashioned leverage. The real question is, like, how closely did they get him? Because he's White Court, right? Like, so he can't tell Lara, he can't get his people involved. Like, how close do they have to have him, basically, in order for him to do this? So yeah, there's loads of questions there, but it's, people get all upset about how Harry didn't handle it, blah, blah, blah. It's like, guys, when the dust settles, the resolution is almost certainly going to be, and this asshole framed me, and this was the entire thing. Like, it's one of those things. I'm sorry, it's not some deep conspiracy, but it's probably going to be like, that fucker King Korb put a Fomor thing in my brain, or they told me they'd eat my baby if whatever. The Fomor are evil, they got to him is my guess.
But I think he was trying to tell Harry, but I think it's purposely misled what he's saying, and it's like Justine something. I don't
like that.
I think it's got to be something else.
I've heard people say that they think he's saying Janoshua.
Well, I mean, it could be, it could be like River's Shoulders told him, like, this guy is still in play and he's going to get you. But I guess that's a little devious for what I would expect.
He was fucking Janoshua Jam, and he's still around.
Because he's immortal. Because he is a divine being.
He had a coin.
Yeah.
Who knows? Then it leaves the question of, is Asher or Lashiel still alive? And whatever. But I just have to say, the idea that Justine is Black Council infected anything and she's the reason that Thomas did something, I absolutely hate it, because it was completely cheapened their relationship.
I don't think necessarily that it has anything to do with Justine. I think maybe he was trying to say something else entirely.
He was probably trying to say, just shut up and listen, but Harry kept being like, Justine, I'll protect her.
Just get me out of here.
Right.
Justin.
Lord is back.
Rick and Morty, Justin Lord. I think I have a feeling that somebody there in that confrontation is going to be a betrayer. And with the Justine thing, my mind went to something. I don't know if this is true of real Cthulhu lore, but there's Bloodborne. There's a whole thing with giving birth to the Cthulhu monster or something. So I thought maybe that there's something there. And this is kind of a subreddit fan theory. Maybe it's a tinfoil thing, but that kind of makes the theory a little bit more palatable for Justine to be the traitor, or something like that. Or it could just be the Svartalfs being a traitor somehow.
But so she's like being full on Cordelia. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's my guess. As far as
straight up Cordelia, okay.
If you're gonna say Justine's the betrayer, I think that would be a lore fitting Yes, but that's basically that's what I like about the Dresden Files, is because it's got this postmodern, just piecemeal mixed stuff together. You can take other lore from other things and just say, what about that, which happened in the source material?
Right.
See, where my head went was like, okay, maybe this, we're going to be dealing with the Titans and stuff, and Titans eat babies. Maybe the Titans said they were going to eat Justina Thomas's baby. I'm just like, all right, you need to stop this. Stop doing this to yourself.
Well, that's exactly the kind of thing that people say because it's in lore, but it doesn't quite fit.
Right.
If it happens now,
right, it's hard to discount, but I'm not going to say that's the first guess. No,
definitely not. I'm just saying I try sticking with the actual lore, and I'm like, Jim never actually just sticks with it like that. He always gives his own little spin to it. So stop.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I mean, as to your question earlier with favorite scenes, I love chapter 13. But apparently people really hated that chapter in general.
What happens in chapter 13?
He goes to Butters to get patched up and finds out. I just thought it was funny. I thought it was a funny scene.
Mm. So, I mean, speaking of the funny, like the whole thing with conjuritis, it was like, that was one of those where it was like, yeah, well, to me, that was one of those where it was like a step too far. And then B, like the humor seems so antithetical that I was like, the only way this is going to make sense to me is if it becomes plot relevant. And it almost did with the hounds, with the corner hounds, that they used it to their advantage. But yeah, then you had the Butters scene where it's like, something brick wall. And it's like, oh my God, like, why did you just sneeze a brick wall?
I think conjuritis is going to be a battleground plot relevant.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. Like,
I really hope being set up for a reason, right?
Yeah, I want this to reflect his cleverness. If he realizes like, oh, here's how I can kind of control it, so it doesn't just happen to me in the worst possible time, but it's like, oh my God, I really wish I had a functioning motorcycle right now. Or whatever.
Even in the serious darkest moments, you have that ridiculous humor, like you had the frozen chicken flying out of an airplane and land. Yeah, frozen turkey. Frozen. Yeah, so.
The white donut with the sprinkles. Yeah,
exactly.
And I know, and I get it, but just right now, it's just so like comically ridiculous. And it seems like something like all of the main characters, like at your age, like, shouldn't you have dealt with that like 10 years ago? Isn't that more of a Harry Potter type of thing? Like, come on,
if even half of the people in the Butters scene survive, I'm going to be disappointed, because then it's going to feel like it's just Butters.
I am excited for when EG is speaking to us again, and he can tell us why he is mad that Butters is getting all of this reward.
Right.
Well, and it's funny that you see it that way, right? Because like a lot of people do, but I want to talk, like let's have a conversation, not necessarily today, but maybe for a future show about, the ambiguous moral ground this might put you on from, a conservative fundamentalist standpoint, right? Like he's towing around this whole monogamy thing, and everything like that. So, I mean, you could, unless you had a different meaning, but yeah, like I think having a Knight of the Cross have a relationship like this sends some interesting signals, especially to that crowd. So,
like, Knight of the Cross be an atheist?
Well, I mean, there's plenty going on there, and I think for the Dresden Files, it's important because atheists are objectively wrong in the Dresden verse, right? Like you could take Sonya's agnostic arguments and be like, well, maybe he's an alien, and it was like, at what point does the difference between he's a fifth dimensional being and he's a literal deity? At what point are you like splitting hairs?
Because you saying God is Mr. Mixelpixel?
No, but if you could get him to say that, you might just, So, but in any case, I mean, those are some theories, and it's like, how would you square the idea that an alien gave you a powerful monster hunting sword, and what does that tell you about the nature of monsters if you want to follow that down? But yeah, so like, Sonya's character is funny, but like you can't take him seriously, and even he doesn't take himself that seriously with it because he was given the sword by Michael, that Michael.
So the only actual Christian is Michael. Shiro wasn't really Christian either.
He tried to do a good job with it, though.
I think it's more of a basic human decency thing that qualifies to the swords. And I think it's very in character for something like the Swords of the North and Knights of the Cross to be used as tools and convenient persons to stand up against the monsters, rather than demanding perfection from the agents. Just kind of, and that works with what Harry does too, right? Mm-hmm. Harry's a white hat, despite he tries to be a gray hat. He's really just the white hat.
Okay, Michael. You're the best man that I know. Well, certain baseball bat scenes come to mind and a few other things, but okay.
Well, there's a sense of justice. There's a basic human decency, and I think that's kind of what ties the Knights of the Cross together.
Right.
Yeah. So if Butters starts, hacking off babies' heads or something, then that's going to be a problem.
He literally can't. He doesn't have a sword.
He can't. The sword doesn't work that way, right?
Yeah, right.
That's true.
One of the greatest
demon
scenes,
babies.
Yeah. The wife is like, "Oh, I'm reading the sparring match between Sonya and Butters." I'm like, "Are you at the beginning or the end?" The beginning. Oh, okay. I'll shut up then.
Yeah. That was fun.
I was a little worried Harry was going to get hurt when he put his hand in there. Like would have been the mantle or something. I was like,
right. It knows. Yeah. Actually, I mean that's a really important clue. Like there is a lot of subtlety there because talking about right. That's a good question.
Amaracus burned Susan when she was just trying to pick it up in death masks.
Those are
when she was doing it for good reason. Then it was like fine.
Also true.
I don't remember that in Death Mask. That feels like forever ago, but I say she did use it in Changes, right?
Yes. But she was afraid. Like the last time she touched it, it burned her, right. So she was worried of touching it. It's like, but if you stay focused on the fact that you're trying to save your child, the Sword of Love will help you.
Right.
I still think Thomas is going to pick Amaracus up.
Well,
I finally let go of my Murphy hopes and dreams of Murphy taking swords. Now that she'd have to use it as a cane, basically. So no one's here for that.
I don't know. I mean, Yoda made a good.
That's true. She'll be a Valkyrie
or Iron or something.
It really feels like they're still. Yeah, he's.
Well, yeah, the way that Freitas wants to hook up with her so bad.
Right.
Which
I didn't like Freitas. A lot of people seem to.
I just like the way that it made Murphy react because nothing ever seemed to rattle her. That definitely seemed to rattle her a little bit. So it made me laugh.
But Murphy's been hit on by women before. Lara hit on her a few times.
Laura hits on everybody.
Animal, mineral, vegetable. Laura.
Right, exactly.
But I just something about Freitas just kind of felt cheap. Like too much.
She is a little bit of a caricature, right? But
if I compare her to her sister Sigrun, and Sigrun is just so much more impressive. I don't know. It's just like there's something I didn't. I mean, it's kind of funny, but afterwards, it felt cheap. Like
she's the other kind of Valkyrie. Guard is the shield maiden, hold the line type of Valkyrie, and Freitas is the the
We're
women
gonna party
also
because we've got eternity.
Yeah, it's like the women also drink and fuck and fight. So I can do all three. Like,
what if Freitas is a mantle and Murphy becomes a Freitas?
Shut up! Even I don't think that.
Can someone mute this guy?
Right.
I mean, Rashid is Vatarung, and you cannot prove otherwise. But no, Freitas isn't a mantle.
We can't prove otherwise yet. So what do you think is going on while they're attacking the gates? Where do you think the gatekeeper is? He's just fucking around at the party, staring down Faravax, or he's busy over there? Don't pay any attention. Yeah.
Y'all gonna make me jump to Mirror, and I don't want to do that. That's. Ooh. Y'all would probably make me sound like the biggest noob ever if I got into Mirror. So
don't worry, you have time to
that's
wait
what the book
now.
after Battleground's called, right? Mirror.
Yes.
It's supposed to be.
If you know what the Star Trek episode's about, alternate reality is there's coming to Dresden Files. I'm sorry, it is.
If you don't know, it's the split happens at the end of Grave Peril. Harry makes a different decision, and that's where the dimensions parted.
Okay. See, I wish I had all these years to think of these things and go back and dissect these and do a reread and all that stuff.
Word of Jim and stuff.
The word of Jim is the critical part that really forms in a lot of it.
Yeah, that's what he said. This is where. What if I made a different choice and then different? This is the different Harry.
Right. We finally know more about peace talks than Mirror, but there were several of the last 5 years where that was not the case.
He was not free to talk about Mirror. because this whole idea he had for peace talks was kind of like he was going to yank it out under us, right? When we read
we
the
even
book.
got to know about the book after that, which is totally going to be named Heel Turn. You cannot prove me wrong yet.
Yeah.
Team Heel Turn.
Still, there's that word yet.
Yeah. I will petition.
By the way, you guys asking Jim on Twitter when Mirror's coming, you're jerks. Stop it. Leave him alone.
Yeah.
Right.
Seriously.
He's giving you 2 books this year. Stop.
Right.
Well, those people would argue he's given us 1 book or 2 half books.
Fine, he's given us 1
He
book.
gave you 15 books in 15 years. Shut up.
I would actually say that, like, for Jim, until this whole break and his life and everything, and like that happens, whatever, he's been like Sanderson level consistent. He was like 2 books a year, pretty consistently with Dresden and Codex Alera, and then he started the new series where he also was like doing that one on a Dresden book, and then and then everything went like the.
I mean, if you're sticking just with Dresden Files, he's basically, if you count all the novellas as a book release, I mean, you get like 18 books in 20 years. Oh, cry me a river.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, I was sad I had to wait so long, especially when you get used to having a book a year. But he's not Sanderson level, but he's pretty close. Even if you take all the novellas, you take all the other series he writes a lot. I don't think people did that.
And I think we know he went through some shit. He isn't sitting in front of Cheerio boxes making videos about how terrible it is that people want another book. Okay.
What is with the Cheerio boxes? I don't get it. I've seen that.
I assume he can't have, like, you know, most authors who have a channel like that, they have the books that they've written behind them, and he has 2 books, so he's got to fill it up with something, right? All right, sorry, I derailed.
Well,
don't worry, we do that all the time.
That's the biggest criticism of my channel. Stay on topic. No.
one of my favorite things with think about what's going in. After Battleground, we get the Olympian affair, which maybe you guys don't care about Cinder Spires, but I think Jim's
care
really
a lot about.
Okay,
you know, I never heard of that until I started reading. I'd heard of Codex Alera, but when I started doing the reviews that people were talking about, we're getting Cinder Spires, I'm like, I don't even know what this is.
Well, it's just the second book of the series. It's literally just had 1 book, but I think Jim's grown so much as a writer and so much as kind of a world builder. Absolutely, like Dresden Files still has a bit of the baggage from decisions he made when he first started writing. Like, literally, the Restoration of Faith is going to be part of the big apocalyptic trilogy. Codex Alera, I think, was stronger because he had years of experience. He had multiple novels published and a little bit more editorial input, and he was able to work it out more.
Olympian should I read Codex Alera? You guys think I'd like it?
Absolutely, I think so. Absolutely, but
I haven't made it past book 2.
If you got through Wheel of Time, there's no reason why you can't get through a Codex Alera. These people who just really like the Buffy and the pulp and then like the really fast-paced things, I think.
Well, people say don't go into it expecting Dresden Files. I'm like, well, obviously I wouldn't, but I don't know. I think that a lot of people did go into it expecting Dresden Files, and that's why they.
I think you should read this next from Jim. It's really good.
Oh, the Don't Start Incomplete series. Yeah, okay. Let me read book 1. There's not even a book 2 yet.
It's Jim.
But there's good credit there, right? So like he's finished.
I've got so many finished series I haven't started. We're starting Malazan next year, so I'm booked. But I was curious about Codex Alera because I feel like it gets a lot of mixed feedback on the channel.
Don't expect Dresden Files. I think it was really good, and read it before you read Cinder Spires because there's always the question of whether they're connected, and you refuse to answer.
So that means yes. Okay.
Exactly. That was my reaction.
You didn't say no.
A funny tidbit, since you're new to the whole Butcher fandom. There's you know how every Dresden book he has, you know, he's wearing a hat. He very certainly is not wearing a hat in the book, in the actual story.
But he is.
I'm pretty sure he actually even said, "I hate hats." So I think it's just become a running joke at this point, right? Like him
of course,
like him making Buffy references for James Marsters to say.
This character in this book specifically wears a hat. And guess what? He's not wearing on the cover.
Is that the same artist?
It's the same artist.
Yeah,
that's great.
So they're just kind of
this is crazy. I don't listen to audiobooks, but I love James Marsters. So I feel like maybe if I do a reread one day, maybe I'll try, since I know the story, maybe I'll try it to listen to this. Because
I mean,
I'm watching Buffy with my 8-year-old for the first time, and he's just like, he loves Spike. He's like, Spike's just so cool. And I'm like, you're not wrong.
And Toot and Changes are the 2 reasons really to listen to the audiobook. I think they're just wonderful. His Toot is great.
Oh yeah, speaking.
He is a great Toot.
Who's done audiobook other than me? Justin, you did audiobook?
For
I have
Peace
both.
Talks?
Yeah.
No. I need to get a copy of it though, because I already told the wife I'm gonna have to go through it like 3 times before Battlegrounds comes. So
I feel like there's some production issues, like the sound quality switches. Someone needs to have a sample of the voices, and when it's so that James can listen to them before he starts, because I swear Map is Grimalkin.
He did change Mab's voice in this one, and I don't know why, but he's also done, like, Rashid had an Indian accent at one point, and then later in the same book, he was back to being kind of that Arabic British.
Right.
I don't understand.
Wait. So he gives away these kind of clues in the audiobooks?
Yeah.
Then what was the voice? Then what was the voice that he used for Cal? Have we heard it on anybody else?
It's very rough and gravelly and low, and like you can't. And I think there was a hint somewhere that whatever voice that they have, I think in the text too of that.
Okay, so maybe Jim Itten actually told him who it was. So.
Right, like it's being altered, distorted. That's
right.
The word.
Yeah, but there are clues. Like, Jim has given him feedback and given him, like, do it this way. This is how the word's pronounced. They do pronunciation guides and some other things. So,
like, sometimes Jim said that, like, they asked, "How do you say this word?" And he said, "I don't know. I just know how to type it."
Right. So
Marcone apparently they didn't agree on at first, so that gets changed after a couple of books.
Right.
Because I think James started saying Marcone, and then he got notes, and it was
for
Marcone.
Like the first 2 or 3 books. Yeah.
Speaking of Marcone,
dude, he was a boss in this book.
He was a boss. He's
always a boss, but everyone's like flipping out. Even these ghouls are like peace, and he's like, "Yo, coward."
Yeah,
it's my house.
Are you a coward? What are you implying? Nothing. It's just a question. Are you a coward?
His hands like this and doing like, "Yo, we're gonna do this, this, and this." And I'm like, you know what? If I was there, I'd listen to him. Dude's just got that kind of control. That's why I love Marcone.
And we still have the question of why was Marcone and Harry getting dressed together?
Yeah, that's in the trailer because there's also battleground scenes, and Priscilla wouldn't tell us which were battleground scenes. Which
okay. I was like, because when I saw that, I was like, well, that's a twist I didn't expect.
Right.
I love Marcone, but that's not something that I ship there. Okay.
Everybody writing /fiction is like, hold up.
I was saying, did the supernatural fan fiction community get a hold of this stuff? What's going on here?
But apparently there will be a battleground. I guess they're getting dressed for a big battle or something. I don't know what they were doing, but we'll find out.
I mean, they were wrestling, if you know what I mean.
Oh.
On that fake out in the trailer with Harry and Lara, and then in the book it's like, it's an illusion.
When Mab specifically says Lara is not allowed to eat him, I was like, okay, so she's gonna eat him, and it's gonna cause shit. And then it was just a fucking illusion. It's just, I didn't mean that pun, but it's just, it was like, I get it. It was kind of well done. I was expecting so much. I was expecting Lara to be more of a bad guy instead of the sidekick, even though it's being very well executed.
Well, she does come after him with some daggers, so that.
Yeah, it wasn't even just the sidekick. He very much made her like girl next door and vulnerable this story. And so like even Freitas at the end is like, she really likes you, as in like likes you, right? And you done fucked up. And it's like, yeah, bro, we've known since White Knight. We didn't forget. But at the same time, like, yeah, that tiger really likes you, as in likes you, but I'm not going to let down my guard, like fine. She's still a monster. Like, come on.
Lara is one.
I just finished watching Tiger King, so that actually just went somewhere else.
There you go.
Never
once, not even to try it. I live in Florida. It's
sorry.
too close.
God, I gotta stop this.
It's all good. What was the other thing? Oh, I mean, if you want to talk about the Laura thing and like the illusion and everything, like how bad does that make Marcone look though? That like this shit happens underneath his nose. It's like, so was he somehow in on it, or was Harry's whole misdirection thing just so perfect that like nobody in a field of demigods and immortals who has like true sight by virtue, because they almost certainly do. Fairfax is the only one paying attention.
Yeah. There were at least it seems like there were 2 people.
Oh my god, that staring contest. That was one of the best things. And Vaterung even had a pipe just to piss off Fairfax.
Right. Well, and it also, I mean, Fairfax catching him and Vaterung staring him down. Like, what does Vaterung have on Fairfax that he backed down? Like,
I honestly didn't think Vaterung was on Fairfax's level in terms of power.
Right.
They're not. Okay, so based from the various words of Jim, Vadarung basically took a step down in order to have more ability to act. He has less power. And in a different one, he said that if Mab threw down with Ferrovax, she would barely make it because Ferrovax is that strong. So I don't know what Vadarung has on him, but Vadarung is not as powerful as a dragon.
I mean, maybe certainly not personally, but maybe with Monarch, he's like, do you really want to fight 1,000 iron? Like we can make this work.
Was that the first? When did we last see this with Ferrovax?
Grave Peril.
Was it Grave Peril the last time we saw this character?
When we saw him, he's referenced in Skin Game, but
that was like that moment when you have like all the crossovers characters and you're like, well, I forgot about this character. I mean, I was kind of waiting for Mavra to show up there for a second. But...
Mavra will return in Mirror.
So great.
Word of Jim.
Awesome.
But
see, I can watch all the read all the spoiler stuff now. It's exciting.
Yeah, she is like a member of the Black Council, and they are, or Black Court, and they are signatories, right? So I really did expect a representative of some
Didn't
kind.
someone say that Mavra was seen moving around? Yeah, didn't Freitas say that?
Yeah.
Mavra was seen active a year ago.
Right. I forget where did they say or yeah.
Did you guys catch the name drops of books as well?
I mean,
I did see they did talk about peace. They did say peace talks in there. I mean,
that was Stormfront too. I think there was one more.
Oh yeah.
That was
kind of funny.
He does pine. Yeah, he does pine for Victor a little bit. Man, I miss the easier days where it was just some punk, warlock making drugs.
Yeah, no, but it's like literally the book title is dropped into the text.
I didn't catch
that has to be on purpose.
Well, I'm sure Summer Night probably came up in there somewhere, right? No?
Well,
probably.
Fix was there.
Fix was there.
Right.
So we had the question, Ferrovax got a box of jewels from Bianca's party. Mm-hmm. And I asked Jim, was it infected? And he refused to answer. The question is still there because the people who gave him the box was Cal and Komori, who gave the poisoned Athame to Leah. And
Maps Athame. No headcanon.
Maybe. We'll get into that.
You're right. Yeah, that's a deep lore episode.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But that was really fun to see, too.
I mean, so the
guys
question
are making me
is,
just smile and nod here on some of these things.
Right. The question about the jewels thing kind of brings up like Mab's whole thing, right? Mab obviously was able to figure it out and cure it, so it's possible Ferrovax being on her level doesn't have the same difficulties, that Leah would have. So, but that also gives you a very fucking targeted, like where in the hierarchy of the cosmology do you need to be before you're susceptible?
I mean, we've still only seen she be infected.
True. So far as we know, until Ebenezer, Carlos, and, everybody else comes out. We're like, we were secretly infected the whole time. So Thomas, Justine.
It's going to turn into like, who's a Cylon? Who's
right.
You're a Cylon. No, you're a Cylon. It's going to turn into that kind of thing, which I'm here for. I love that. I love that. You're like the Thing, John Carpenter's thing, or the Thing. Yeah, I'm all about that.
Oh man, could you imagine Dresden going through the Thing? That would be fantastic. Thank you for
well, he's got a lot of fire, so I think he'll be fine.
Right. No, I mean, definitely there's burning blood taking place, but just
but his whole
visceral
unreliable
reactions.
narrator thing going through the Thing would be really, really fun. Like I said, I think it was it Cold Days where I said one of the things I really liked was him just having like these just sinister ass thoughts into him. He was like normalizing them and rationalizing them. Like, oh yeah, I could just like lay her down and just have my way with her. It wouldn't be a big deal. And I'm just like, wow, you might be going loony, buddy. So yeah, something like the Thing would be really fun to hear from his point of view.
Right.
He's also kind of like, oh yeah, go ahead, but
no, I've got a crazy tinfoil theory. You go first.
I hate when people criticize that in the books because, well, first of all, the world doesn't let him act this way, etc., etc. But it's also one of the only downsides that we know of to the Winter Mantle. So if that wasn't there, that whole him having trouble with his human urges that they're getting amplified by the Winter Mantle, then it was kind of that. Then there wouldn't really be any downside to having the mantle.
I think not knowing that he's hurt, that one's a big one, right? Like he'll like he could tear his ACL and not even notice it and just completely wreck his leg. That kind of thing. But
which is kind of the idea of it.
Well, that's good. That's a good point. I do think that I can go on record saying I was a bit frustrated in previous books with the Winter Mantle thing being just explicitly mostly kind of sexualized, and then of course the physical injury part is nice too, and that's a decision that Jim kind of has to live with. But in this book, it's kind of more of a fade to black. It's rather than just having a chapter that's just about the nasty. It's
it wasn't the dream sequence in Skin Game.
Right. Exactly right. Exactly.
We already
it's
had
a little
that,
bit more
right?
interspersed.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So,
I generally like how he writes those kind of scenes and throughout the book. It's like it's kind of okay. It doesn't really get that explicit, and I kind of don't really want it to get explicit. Like the worst was probably the worst. If depends if you like that or not.
I'll be honest. I didn't know if him and Murphy actually in the book or not at first. I was like, did they actually do it? Because I was like, in Skin Game, he wrote like 6 paragraphs where I thought, okay, this is finally happening. Which, by the way, I want to give him credit because I always criticize fantasy authors. Stop writing sex scenes. It's not your forte. I was reading that. I was kind of like, it's pretty good. But then with this, she just basically tells him to get over it. I'm like, well, did they or not? And then obviously Ramirez, like they kind of confirmed that. But
a little bit too much.
I was thinking maybe is this part of my arc? Did it maybe not? Is it not in the arc or something? But you guys were saying it's the same.
Well, yeah, right. And Death Masks, he conceived a child, so it's not just Skin Game. So,
right. Well, I mean, Death Mask had bondage sex though, so I mean,
yeah. Which was I think it was a bet, right? It was a bet or a dare.
Yeah,
a bet might make a plot relevant one.
Yeah.
So
you can't make a sex scene plot relevant. Oh boy! So he's still paying for that.
Yeah. Well, then there was Cold Days too. That was kind of sort of in a fade to Hurricane Black something, but it was there. It was broadcasted.
Oh yeah, that one. Yeah.
Changes. It was Changes. Yeah.
Oh, somebody.
But so the fact that Lara got burned was really good.
Oh, dude, I am pretty relieved because that was there was that opening. That was one of the unresolved plot points that I've been keeping in the back of my mind is that Lara was keeping track of that shit, right? And this book, it almost makes it more like she was keeping track of it because she really has, the hots for Harry. It's not just an act. Whereas like earlier on, it was like, she's keeping tabs on him because she needs to get leverage on him. And she knew that he and Susan, and it was like in the deeps. She's like, really? Still? How many years ago was that? And then the Lucio thing left him vulnerable. And you're like, shit, like when is she going to catch on?
And then of course we have
it's like,
the trailer.
Oh, by the way, this morning,
and, Yeah, with the trailer and thinking of like, okay, so Lara's going to eat him now. This is really dangerous. He really needs that protection. It's kind of an occupational hazard at this point. Right. And now he has the protection. I'm the one who
thought that trailer was just going to be full of Mr. X on purpose.
Well, I mean, it was apparently. So,
I didn't watch the trailer because I didn't obviously anything sports. So I watched it like 60 seconds before I started reading Peace Talks.
Nice.
And I was like, okay, hey, I remember that from the trailer. I remember that from the trailer. So maybe not having the time to dissect it. Like probably, did you guys do like a frame by frame on it? Probably.
Not quite that bad, but we also had Priscilla on, so she was able to tell us like, you guys are.
That probably helps.
You guys totally missed all this shit. So, yeah.
I mean, I can just imagine Priscilla with the whole like the sex scene, for example, being she knew it was an illusion, and the battleground stuff like we don't really know what is yet. She's sitting with Jim, like, now I know how you feel, Jim.
Yeah. Yeah, but which one was it? The master or the apprentice? So,
okay, I've got the tinfoil
always
theory.
Two there are.
Let's get the tinfoil. So we know that the book after Battleground is Mirror Mirror, and there have been many things pointed out in this book as kind of inconsistencies, things that aren't quite right. And it's been said, I don't know if this is true, that beta readers caught some of these and Jim just didn't want to fix them. Like the Better Future Society, I've never been here before in the flesh. Right. Mm-hmm. So what if Peace Talks is an alternate version of Harry that we were meeting for the first time, and Battleground, it'll tie back into the main continuity?
I think that would probably piss a lot of people off, honestly.
Right. Because if we're getting all of this
that mirror, but hey, it's not bad. Yeah. That's not bad, really. I mean, I could see that. It would make the lead into mirror make sense.
Well,
which Voyager episode?
It's still tinfoil. It's not. Don't take that seriously. Oh my goodness!
What?
Why would you tempt fate?
Holy shit! What are you doing here?
Cut it. We're out. So this has been a production of the Dresden Files podcast.
I thought you weren't joining us, ET. You were going to take a month to read the book.
Don't do it. He doesn't have his ears in.
Oh, he does. Oh, okay.
No. I wasn't joining you, and then I got the book early, and then it was really short.
I told you.
I got criticized for calling it short.
And then Ben started saying stupid shit.
He's been watching it live. So, yeah.
He's just sitting. Okay, now Ben's going off the deep end. I'm joining. That's it.
Oh my god. Okay. Okay, this is going long then.
Yeah, I was going to say
it's not going to go that long.
A 2-hour episode, I'm going to need an intermission.
No,
so.
I popped on at the end because I had actually just finished it before.
Nice.
So I came on to look and see what you were talking about, and then Ben was saying stupid shit. So I was like, no.
So you just finished it.
Yeah.
And how did you feel?
What do you think?
Right.
Let's get your opinion really quick.
Just like cuts.
Your initial thoughts.
It was fine.
That's fair. That's fair.
Right. I saw initially in the subreddit the complaints right before I came on, and I get it because I understand it's supposed to be 2 books and I understand all that, but there's a lot of stuff in here that could have been done better.
Sure, that's true.
Anyway, as far as general stuff goes, I mean, I'm really just waiting for that Butters death scene.
I told you.
Yeah,
it's not.
He already died. He died and went to heaven. That's why he's got 2 girlfriends.
It can't come soon enough.
Yeah.
It can't.
We can't do it again any more than we can burn down Harry's house again. Oh wait, we did that too. So
yeah. But I figured I would drop in like a Titan and kick you guys.
Nice.
I mean, before we end it off, I kind of want to touch on that the fight between Eb and Harry, and I like the fake out really got me because I was like,
it was good.
I was like, okay, oh god, I was like, had tears in my eyes. Oh no, Eb is gonna use like his death curse to save Harry. Eb is gonna die.
Oh, he probably.
I was like, Jim, you're really going to kill off Harry again? I mean, come on, this was 4 books ago. What are you doing? Yeah, so that's where
it was so great because it was like he's hamming it up somewhere. And, because it's like he can't die, obviously. We also know that he survives the book and whatever else. But, it's always a joke I have with the wife when you're watching a show, one of the main characters like dies on screen. You're like, well, that was a short movie. This one was like, oh, well, that's the end of the Dresden Files and whatever. But then Ebenezer's like, you son of a bitch, you're hamming it up for me. And then, but the fact that he like unhooks the telephone at the same time, right? That it goes from his shocked realization to just Harry being like, he fucking killed me. So
yeah, I mean,
it was just so great.
That scene got to me like emotionally, and then I felt like I just got yanked when I was like, oh.
For me, there was a fair bit of shock with how that played out, but it was also the disbelief. But I was still riding the shockwave from the fact that Ebenezer wound up to do it in the first place. That Ebenezer was like, fuck Laura Wraith, fuck Thomas, fuck Karen Murphy, fuck Freitas. I'm going to blow up that boat to get to Thomas. And I was like, wait, what? In the moment, I was like, he can't use magic to kill. And then afterwards, I was like, oh, right, because the black staff. Yeah. But still, even there, I was like, you are way over the line. And that's when I finally started to realize, like, he isn't just like angry out of control, because again, when he was arguing and fighting with Harry, it still was a fair bit of like one hand tied behind his back. He during the fights, he didn't seem like he was completely off the rails until that moment. And then that was like, yep, that's it. You are over the line. Mark it 0. We're done here. I don't know how he's going to fix that with Harry. Like that's...
He probably won't. And this is one of the reasons, again, I think Ebenezer is going to die. He is going to have some glorious embrace of Thomas and love all of his grandchildren. And then he's going to give Harry the black stuff and die.
Gross.
No, I said he wasn't going to die, and I'm counting this as a win. So staying alive.
I thought it was like, I thought it wasn't losing control, and then he dies. But I guess I'm always wrong, so I pass it off to EG's win.
Yes, it is. You are absolutely wrong about this being the Mirrorverse.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking of this. Right? Like, while you were talking about your tinfoil theory, like, I could borrow some of this and ascribe it to what if he didn't fix some of the shit because of time travel. But I don't understand how he could justify the BFS thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, it, unfortunately, that does lend to your theory. That's the only thing. But
because there's also the last time a dragon was killed, which apparently Ebenezer was responsible for. But Michael killed one 25 years ago.
Right. I was very much having a tough time with that. So I want to go read that passage again specifically. And yeah, there were definitely some continuity.
Oh yeah, I'll have done 2 rereads by the time this weekend is over. So
yeah, wow.
But
so we will really tear into the book and all of its new information in 2 weeks. Do we have any more things we want to share about Peace Talks right now?
Yeah, fuck Butters.
That's the idea.
Chapter 13
You're
was
mad
the best
because
chapter.
he's getting fucked.
Yeah,
sounds
I'm
like
mad
a last
because of
name.
that. I'm mad because he's in the book to begin with. I'm mad that he's beating Sonya in sparring and taking over Sonya, the best knight of all, and he's usurping him. I don't want to hear it. No. Fuck
you know,
him.
if you read the expanded universe, it makes a
Stop
lot of
it.
sense. No. Yeah.
Although
has
I do
been a
appreciate, I did a write-up once upon a time about how the angels were the ones empowering the blades, and I'm kind of glad that turned out to be true. It
Right,
always
that
made
was a good
sense to
one.
me,
Yeah.
but
What were you going to say, Mike?
I was just going to say with a lot of the reviews is I feel like you got to wait for Battleground because it's very clear this is a two-part. I could tell who wasn't old enough to be alive when Picard got turned into a Borg and Riker says fire,
Right.
and then you get a cliffhanger for 6 months. So I could tell who wasn't around for stuff like that. If this is very, very easy of a cliffhanger, in my opinion, where, okay, it's good enough stopping point. It's not like Harry getting shot and falling off a boat and that's where the book ends. And then you got to wait a year and a half. I didn't, but I'm just saying.
Some of us
I
did.
can tell who wasn't around for that. If this cliffhanger and you get the resolution in 75 days, if that's bothering you, have some patience.
Numbers
However,
don't
if
matter.
Battleground comes out and I feel like we didn't get enough resolution, then I'll grade this book probably differently. But as of right now, I enjoyed it. But again, I binge read this series. I didn't have a super, super long wait for it. So maybe that is affecting my reaction to it.
There's something about the wait that just seems very suspicious, and the fact that they are releasing 77 days apart. And that's how long Harry spent in Mab's rehab program.
Oh, shit.
There was
What?
Illuminati confirmed.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Thomas apparently attacked Etchery 7 minutes into the Peace Talk time period
damn, we're
thing.
doing this.
Like there was
This
a
is
lot
like-
of numbers, and it felt suspicious.
This likes talk about 19 in Stephen King books here. This is good. This is good. I like it.
Oh, you should read Vlad Taltosh series and track all the time 17 shows up.
I also think all of the criticism, while some of it is certainly, it doesn't take away. I still think it's a great book. I think it's also a vocal minority because the overall ratings on Goodreads so far.
Oh, I have guys on my Discord saying it's
fine.
worse than Full Moon. I'm like, stop it.
Right.
It. God. Yeah, the face she just made. Exactly. That's what I said. That's what I did when I read it. What?
yeah, it's not worse than Full Moon. It's not worse than Ghost Story, but it's.
It's up in the top
I can
three
see
for
why
me.
people think it's
like
so
Ghost
much.
Story.
Hey, that reminds me, I can't
Yeah.
believe I forgot. We have a tradition for new guests that you have to tell us your favorite 3 Dresden books and your favorite character.
That is true. We forgot that.
My favorite not Harry character?
You
Michael.
can pick
Harry.
Long shot. I don't feel like Michael's probably an unpopular answer, but basically the one paragraph of Michael I get per book now is always usually my favorite. Changes, Death Mask, and Skin Game are probably my 3 favorites right now. But I still feel like I haven't.
2
waited
out
along.
of 3, Mike. Not bad.
Basically, if it has Nicodemus and the Denarius in it, it's my favorite book. I love that, and I can't wait for book 20 because they're coming back every 5 books. Dude comes back. So
No, he's on
I
the
can't wait
run
for that.
now. Like, there's
okay.
people
Yeah,
are
it's
out
not
there
like he was
hunting
brought up
him.
No,
twice.
it'll be Mirrorverse version, and he'll show up.
He's really a good guy.
But that list
Right.
might change. But I feel like Death Masks and Changes are going to be locked in there for a while. At least 2 of those 3. But I really did like Skin Game, and it's mostly because you had Hades petting Cerberus, and that's telling him who's a good boy.
Right.
Good stuff.
Director didn't spit take when you said Death Mask, so she must have become desensitized. So, because that's your
Oh, I
least
loved it.
favorite
That was-
book, isn't it?
See,
No, Stormfront is.
Oh, okay.
Death Mask was the book where I went from I like the series to I love it. So, but again, I've always been I was a big Michael fan.
That was mine for Summer Night.
The first time I was reading the series, I stopped in Death Mask and I didn't pick it up again for years. And so I started up again and I kept reading, and there is some weird weakness there, but I do enjoy other parts of it, and it's an okay thing. And in Stormfront is clearly the worser book because he was still learning how to do it.
I think I was very, very much influenced by Buffy and Angel, where Nicodemus felt straight like a villain from a season of Buffy or Angel, and that's why I kind of connected with those villains the best.
Nice.
And we have all the villains now in Peace Talks. Right. Everyone's here. Like the
Mirrorverse versions.
They're all heroes now.
I'm using that. The Mirrorverse.
I wonder to Marcone's roof, and yeah.
I'm starting a hashtag Mirrorverse with a little tinfoil hat next to
it. Like everyone who's on like team reality, I guess. Even the bad guys, it's kind of got a band together.
So it's like
here.
Dresden Avengers Assemble, right?
You can't blow up the world. That's where I keep all my stuff.
I'm so excited for Battlegrounds.
Yes, I'm pretty pumped.
A publisher told me I'd be getting an arc, so
yay!
If you guys want to hop in my DMs and let me tell you everything that happens, I will.
Yeah.
No, I won't.
Okay, we'll do a reading party. So
yeah,
masks, gloves, ARC. Yeah. Let's go.
All right, but it comes out 73 days from now, I believe, if I have the numbers counted right. And from now until then, we're going to be tearing apart Peace Talks and all of the various details and lore that we can possibly do that.
Yay!
And I'm going to watch all the spoiler stuff that I didn't get to watch for years. So,
right?
Yes.
And read the short stories. Read the short stories.
It's definitely happening. That's definitely. I've only read Aftermath at the moment, but I do know obviously Zoo Day is one that's supposed to be very important. Bombshell. God, what was it? Winter something, cold something. I think
Cold
the one about Molly.
Yeah,
those are apparently the ones that I really go. But I'm just going to start at the beginning and read them all.
I can't believe that Mike doesn't do audio that much, and he won't get to hear James's rendition of Mouse in Zoo Day, which is just...
Oh, he actually has a voice for Mouse? That guy's just too talented to not really be working in TV or movies right now.
Well, Jim has said that he is one of the most in demand, and we cannot afford him. Marsters does it because he likes the series too, and even waiting for Peace Talks, he asked, where the hell is the book?
Maybe if they actually do make this an animated series, maybe he'll just have James Marshall do like all the voices, like all of them, like every character.
All right. We have stuff to plug. So plug away, everyone, all at once.
Go check out Mike.
I bow to no corporate sponsors. I have no sponsors on the channel, like at all.
Neither do we, because they don't want us.
I get offers every day, and they all want me to have like a 60-second spoken ad, and I'm like, I'm not doing that. That's not
Raid Shadow Legends, man. That's the way to go.
Word from our sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends.
All right, you are on YouTube. You're on Twitter.
Yeah, well, I don't. Twitter really is much more of an advertising tool. I don't really do it very much anymore. I have a Discord for the channel, which is where the best place to talk. But the channel, Mike's Book Reviews, really is just, I felt like it had become we've gotten to a point as a people where you couldn't have a difference of opinion. And I wanted to create a channel where it was, okay, here's my opinion on a book. If you disagree, I want you to hop in the comments and let's talk about it. So it was a channel really based off a discussion because none of my in real life friends read. I mean, they really don't. And if they do, it's like nonfiction stuff, and I've never been the nonfiction big guy. So I just was something I wanted to create a place to be able to talk about all these books that I love, and to talk about difference of opinion and being like, you know what, you and I disagree. That's okay. We can still be pals. We can still get a beer, hang out, and talk about these things. And I just feel like with the internet, it's just something that kind of got away from.
Are you sure
you didn't like Name of the Wind? You are a Nazi. You know, that's what it had gotten to. I didn't.
I have very specifically never had a beer with any of these people.
Well, we're not allowed to like be, within 6 feet of each other anymore. So, yeah. I was already doing that. All I do is read and take care of my kids. So I don't really do any of that. But yeah, I think it's a channel that's welcoming to anybody. So stop by if you want.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty
fun. Happy to talk to you about things other than just Dresden Files.
What's the point?
There are other things, shockingly.
Yeah,
like
we had so many tangents. We just had another podcast we made so that we can put all the tangents in there.
And guess what we still talk about?
Yep. Dresden.
So all the tangents, give or take.
Like I said, I have all the time new people to the channel will drop in the comments and be like, "Oh, can't you stay on topic?" I'm like, no. It's part of the charm.
Staying on topic is boring.
Just write down on the script to be like, I am on topic. It's on the
stream of consciousness is the way to go.
Exactly. That's why we don't have structure. That's why we don't edit.
Yeah, that's why.
But thank you guys so much for having me. I like I said, I did podcasting for like 10 years before I got into the whole booktube thing. And it was a ton of fun, a lot less post-production, So I had a ton of fun with it. And I'm glad to see that you guys have actually targeted an audience and been able to, I imagine, make it grow over the last 5 years. So that's awesome. Stick with it.
Thank you. We will. And you are welcome back anytime.
I would love to, especially just to see Jacob make fun of Benjamin. It seems like that's probably the best part of the show here at the end.
That is America's favorite pastime. So.
First, Ben would have to show up to an episode on a consistent basis.
Well, here's the thing. It's like, really, you don't even really need the audio. Just see like his facial reactions whenever Benjamin's talking. That seems to be, that's the best.
That's the head shake right there. That's the one.
Like, oh,
he says about 1,000 things without saying a word at all. It's
we were just talking about reaction videos not having content. Jacob's face is full of content.
I'd watch his reaction video.
Yeah, you can, if you want, watch our episodes of Skin Game when we were doing a reread, and you can just watch him be mad at Butters. And Karen, all of it. It's good. It was fun.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Karen beat a Valkyrie in this book. Fuck.
Where did she get the grenades? She doesn't have pockets. Where did the grenades come from?
Okay.
No, I'm out. I'm done.
All right. We will be back next time in 2 weeks.